once in our nation's vice presidential history has a single four-year term been filled by three men. Confused? Well, Robin Hamilton is back with us to explain. Good morning again, Robin.
Hi, our continuing series, Get to Know Your Vice Presidents, has already told you about how Gerald Ford became vice president when Spiro T. Agnew resigned. What we didn't tell you is that Ford, like Agnew, did not serve out the whole term. Agnew had been reelected with President Richard Nixon in the 1972 election, but he resigned the following year in a plea deal over corruption charges and was replaced by Ford. 11 months later, Ford became president when Nixon resigned his own office over the Watergate cover-up scandal. That made it the second time in that term when the vice president's office was vacant. Ford nominated New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller to succeed him as vice president. The grandson of oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller, Rockefeller Center, anyone? The enormously wealthy Nelson Rockefeller had served in various capacities in the Franklin Roosevelt, Truman, and Eisenhower administrations. He'd also run for president 3 times, and Nixon had considered him as a potential vice presidential running mate in 1960 and 1972. Rockefeller wasn't sure he wanted to be Ford's vice president. He'd known every vice president dating back to FDR's VP, Henry Wallace, and in Rockefeller's words, quote, all of them were frustrated by the office and many of them were bitter, end quote. But he relented when Ford promised he'd considered Rockefeller a, quote, full partner on domestic issues. Of course, President Ford did no such thing. The president's chief of staff, Donald Rumsfeld, made sure the new vice president was kept out of the loop on important decisions. Rockefeller finished out the term, then told Ford he didn't come down to Washington to engage in petty squabbles. He returned to New York and retired to private life. But there were benefits to having a multimillionaire hold the office. Rockefeller donated millions of his own money to renovate the official vice presidential residence, even though he had his own D.C. home. And he donated his entire vice president's salary to inner-city low-income education programs. Live in D.C., I'm Robin Hamilton. Back to you.
Very interesting, Robin. Thanks so much. One more thing. Nelson Rockefeller often projected a excuse me, man of the people persona, but his family's extraordinary wealth sometimes made the common touch a little bit of a challenge. One time in a finance meeting, he responded to an aide's comment about take-home pay by innocently asking, what's take-home pay?